Hey folks, welcome back. If you guys watched my Billy Pot baking video on the Freestyle, you may have noticed that I forgot something, which was rocks. I ruined my Billy Pot.
It's a bit warped and the inner pan fits a bit tighter now. As you can see here, the area of metal that I heated in my testing expanded it, causing it to warp. I'm going to need to put some pressure on these other ends with some type of heat for it to expand and hopefully, it takes back its shape. But if anyone has already figured out how to do this, please make sure and post it in the comment. But this is a project for another day. After noticing this, I really thought hard and long for a better solution to rocks. I get that it's simple to grab a handful of rocks and throw it in the billy pot, but I've had a bit of a history with fire and rocks. Not a big fan of it. I was looking through my gear and noticed this pizza stone. It's built for absorbing and transferring heat, so it would be a perfect solution if I can somehow get it to fit in my billy pot. So the question is, how do I do that? My answer to that is, well, we'll just chop it up. In this form, I can still use it for extended purpose of a pizza stone, but now I can actually use it in my billy pot, which is a bonus. I've tested it and it works flawlessly. I have a couple of videos planned, so make sure and hit that subscribe button so you can catch it when it's posted. I won't lie, it was a bit tricky, but you would never believe that the easy part was actually cutting them up. Getting the measurements was the hardest part. Since it's a bit smaller, it can actually fit at the bottom of the billy, which I'm pretty excited about because this means I can try vertical baking. Now, you're probably thinking, vertical baking, what can you do with vertical baking? First thing that came to my mind was beer can chicken. But that's for another video. Let's go through the cut plan. Just as a warning, it's going to get a bit nerdy again as I go through this, but I really want to explain this for the ones who may want to consider doing the same thing I did. I'm going to use Google SketchUp to properly illustrate my process. The first measurement you will need to find is the center point of the stone, which I'm going to go through in the next section. Once you've drawn your center line, it's all pretty much downhill and really all about drawing your cut lines. The diameter of the stone is about 6.5 inches or 16.51 centimeters. So it's just a little bit over, 16.5 centimeters. I decided to cut it into 8 pieces, which would make each piece roughly about 2.1-ish centimeters. So from the center line, I measured and drew the lines to both ends. You will notice that I have the top and bottom tips marked off. These will have to be removed so it can fit into the billy pot. These are measured at 1 centimeter from the edge on both ends. If done correctly, these 4 sections will be reduced down to about 14 centimeters, and from end to end, it will be reduced down to about 15 centimeters. You're going to have to make sure and extend the cut lines to the other side of the stone. If you're going to be using some type of grinder like I did, you have to make sure and score one side about 1 millimeter to 2 millimeters deep so that it reduces the potential for chipping. Now let me show you how I found center. To find center, you're going to need a ruler, a pencil, and an eraser. You want to make sure that your ruler can actually give you a 90-degree angle. So the first thing we need to do is look for a number that we can use for a measurement that's divisible by 2. In this case, we're going to use 16 for this example. So the midpoint of 16 is going to be 8 centimeters. We're going to line up the 0 and the 16 as close as we can to the edge. Then we'll mark the center point, which is at 8 centimeters. And then we'll draw a line. Now, once we have the midpoint, all we need to do now is use a ruler, preferably a 90-degree ruler, and draw a perpendicular line from the midpoint. This should get us pretty close to it. Again, this is just an example. What I'm going to do next is extend this one center line and try and get it extended to the other side. That way I can have the cut lines on both sides. As I alluded to earlier, it's really important that we score at least one side. If not, we're going to get some major chipping when you start grinding and cutting. And that's pretty much it. We've got a center line that goes through on either side. And from this point, you know, we can do our measurements and start placing more lines and getting the rest of the cut lines completed. Pretty simple, right? So this should be your final product. Actually, your final product should look a lot better than this. Now, as you can see, I did bevel the edges, but I do have a lot more work to do as far as sanding and finishing. Tell you what, this material is tough. I dropped it on a concrete floor from about 3.5 feet, and they were just fine. I have a few more ideas to test, including using it as a flame diffuser for alcohol stoves. But again, that's for another video. When placed in a billy, you can see the fit is perfect. It rides up the side to give more protection, and it's just wide enough to avoid the curve of the billy. Anyway, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who's tried this before. But if you still enjoyed this video, please go ahead and smash that like button. And if you want to see my future exploits with this pizza stone, consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and have a good burn.